The transport shuttle landed on Velar Prime just as the twin suns began to set. The sky turned purple and orange, colors that did not exist on Earth. Cole pressed her face against the window and watched the alien world spread out below her. Strange buildings made of crystal and metal rose from the ground like frozen waves. Flying creatures with 6 wings circled the tallest towers. Everything was beautiful and terrifying and new. She was 17 years old. She was the first human ever accepted into the Galactic Integration Academy, and she was completely alone. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, grabbed her bag and stepped onto alien soil for the first time in her life. The gravity was lighter here, maybe 70% of Earth normal. She felt like she could jump over buildings. She felt like she could fly. Other students were arriving too. Saw creatures she had only read about in preparation files. There were plant-like beings with glowing petals instead of hair. They moved slowly and carefully as if afraid of breaking. There were clouds of colored gas contained in floating spheres. They changed shape constantly, never staying still. They were made of living stone, their bodies carved with patterns that told the history of their families. None of them looked at with welcome. Some looked curious, most looked afraid. A human, a creature from a Deathworld, a monster. Understood why they feared her. Earth was classified as a Category 12 Death World, the most dangerous rating possible. Her home planet had crushing gravity, a poisonous oxygen atmosphere, extreme temperatures, and predators on every continent. Most alien species could not survive on Earth's surface for more than a few minutes. The ones who tried usually died screaming. But did not feel like a monster. She felt like a girl far from home, missing her family, hoping she had made the right choice. The Academy's main building rose before her like a mountain of glass. She walked toward it with her bag over her shoulder, trying to look confident. Other students moved out of her way. Actually ran when came close, its petals flickering with fear. She tried not to let it hurt. She failed. The entrance hall was enormous. Thousands of students could fit inside with room to spare. Banners hung from the ceiling, showing symbols from dozens of different species. Looked for Earth's flag but did not find it. Humans were too new to the galaxy. They had not earned a banner yet. A tall figure approached her, recognized the species from her studies. Beings with crystalline wings and compound eyes. They were one of the founding species of the Galactic Collective, ancient and powerful and proud. This was different from the pictures had seen. She was larger, older, with wings that caught the light like broken glass. Her eyes held no warmth. Her mandibles clicked as she spoke, and translator implant turned the sounds into words. I am Commander. I oversee the behavioral conditioning wing of this academy. You are the human. Yes, said I am Cole. She did not bow. The preparation files had said bowing was expected, but something in the commander's eyes made refuse. This was a test. She could feel it. Commander's wings twitched. Her mandibles clicked faster. You do not show proper respect, the commander said. I mean no disrespect, replied, but I also do not bow to strangers. On my world, respect is earned through actions, not demanded through titles. The silence that followed was heavy. Other students had stopped to watch. Teachers paused in doorways. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Commander leaned closer. Her compound eyes reflected its face 1,000 times over. You will learn, the commander said. They all learn. Some just take longer than others. She turned and walked away without another word. Her crystalline wings made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Her hands were shaking. She hid them in her pockets and kept walking. Her room was small and bare. A sleeping platform, a desk, a window that looked out on the purple sky. No decorations, no comforts, nothing that felt like home. Sat on the platform and stared at the wall. She had known this would be hard. The academy had a reputation. It took students from all over the galaxy and turned them into productive members of the collective. The process was called integration. The preparation files called it education. The students who had already graduated called it something else. They called it breaking. But had not come here to be broken. She had come here to prove that humans belonged in the galaxy. She had come here to show that Earth was not just a death world full of monsters. She had come here to be better than everyone expected. She unpacked her bag slowly. A few clothes, a tablet with family photos, a small stone from the beach near her home in California, smooth and gray and warm from being held. She put the stone on her desk where she could see it. Home, family, hope. She would not forget why she was here. The next morning brought her first classes. Galactic history, communication, basic physics adapted for different gravity environments. Sat in the back and took notes and tried not to notice how other students avoided the seats near her. During lunch, she saw something that made her stop. A student was tormenting a young. The gas creature had expanded to fill the corridor, releasing toxic vapor that was making the plant being's petals wilt and brown. There was crying, making soft sounds like rain falling on leaves. Other students walked past without looking. Teachers pretended not to see. Did not walk past. She stepped between thee and its victim. The toxic gas burned her throat and made her eyes water, but she had grown up breathing wildfire smoke during California summers. She had survived worse. Stop, she said. The laughed. It was an ugly sound like bubbles popping in acid. The gas creature expanded more, trying to surround completely. She reached out and grabbed this containment field generator. It was a small device attached to the creature's core, the only solid part of its body. Had read about biology. She knew exactly what she was doing. She adjusted the settings. The containment field tightened. The compressed from a corridor filling cloud into a sphere the size of a basketball. The toxic gas disappeared. The student gasped and stumbled away, its petals slowly returning to their normal color. Released the containment field settings and walked away without speaking. Behind her, the slowly expanded back to normal size. It did not follow her. It did not threaten her. It was too shocked to do anything at all. No student had ever fought back before. That evening, Commander summoned to her office. The human girl went without fear. She did not know what was waiting for her. She did not know that the commander had spent centuries breaking students from across the galaxy. She did not know that the next few months would test everything she believed about herself. But she knew one thing for certain. She would not bow. She would not break. She would not become what they expected her to be. She was human. She was from Earth. And on her world, survival was not about submission. It was about standing up when everyone else looked away. Commander's office was designed to make visitors feel small and afraid. The ceiling was too high. The lights were too dim. The temperature was too cold. Trophies lined the walls, tokens taken from students who had been broken over 300 years of service. A lock of petals, a chip of stone, a container of compressed gas. Each trophy represented a victory, a will destroyed, a spirit crushed. Walked in and sat down without being invited. She looked at the trophy wall with calm eyes. She did not shiver in the cold. She did not squint in the darkness. She simply waited. Commander watched her through compound eyes that had seen 10,000 students enter this room. All of them had left different, smaller, quieter, obedient. This human would be no exception. You attacked a student today, the commander said. Her mandibles clicked with each word. Her wings caught what little light existed and threw it back in sharp patterns. I defended a student today, corrected. There is a difference. The commander's wings went still. Correction was not expected. Students agreed. Students apologized. Students did not argue. The you assaulted comes from a powerful family, continued. They have filed a complaint. They demand punishment. What punishment do they want? The commander showed her teeth. Did not smile. When they showed their teeth, it meant something else entirely. They want you expelled. sent back to your death world in shame. Your species removed from consideration for galactic integration for the next 100 cycles. Felt cold that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. 100 cycles, 100 years, all of humanity's hopes for joining the galactic community destroyed because she had helped a crying child. But she did not let her fear show. On Earth, predators attacked when they sensed weakness. She suspected the same was true here. "What do you want?" asked. The commander leaned forward. Her compound eyes reflected space from every angle. Her voice dropped low. "I want to understand you. I want to know why you did not run when the threatened you. I want to know why you do not bow. I want to know why you sit in my office without trembling." "Because I am human," said simply. "We do not run from bullies. We do not bow to threats. And we do not tremble just because someone wants us to." Was silent for a long moment. Then she made a sound that the translator could not process. It might have been laughter. It might have been something worse. "I have broken students from warrior species," the commander said. "I have broken students whose bodies were made of living metal and whose minds were hardened by centuries of war. You are soft. You are small. You are young. You will break faster than any of them." Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile her grandmother had worn when doctors said she had 6 months to live. It was the smile her father had worn when the wildfire reached their property line. It was a human smile, full of stubbornness and defiance and the absolute refusal to give up. "You can try," she said. The conditioning program began the next morning. Was assigned to cleaning duty in the waste processing facility. The work was disgusting and dangerous. Toxic chemicals burned her skin. The smell made her sick for the first 3 days. Other students who had been assigned this punishment had broken within a week, begging for mercy, promising obedience. Completed her shift every day without complaint. When she returned to her room, she cleaned her wounds with supplies from the medical station. She slept. She woke up. She did it again. After 2 weeks, Commander changed tactics. Was access to the cafeteria. No explanation, no warning. Her food card simply stopped working. She was expected to starve until she came crawling to the commander's office, begging for help. Instead, studied the Academy's gardens. They were filled with decorative plants from across the galaxy, beautiful and supposedly inedible, but had read extensively about. She knew which plants were merely unpleasant to human taste buds and which were actually poisonous. She ate leaves that tasted like burnt rubber and berries that made her tongue go numb. She lost weight. Her energy dropped, but she survived and she did not beg. Commander escalated again. His room was flooded with sound at random intervals. Loud, piercing noise that made sleep impossible. Other students who had endured this treatment had become hollow-eyed and desperate within days. Their grades dropped. Their health failed. They broke. Adapted. She learned to fall asleep instantly whenever the noise stopped, catching minutes of rest between the attacks. She studied during the quiet periods, memorizing material so she would not fall behind in classes. She taught herself to function on 2 hours of sleep per night. Her body ached. Her mind felt foggy. But she attended every class, completed every assignment, and answered every question correctly. 3 weeks into the conditioning program, Commander called back to her office. The human girl walked in looking worse than before. She was thinner. Dark circles marked the skin under her eyes. Her movements were slower, more careful. She looked like someone who was suffering. But she still did not bow. She still did not lower her eyes. She still sat down without being invited. "You are hurting yourself," the commander said. Her voice was almost gentle. "This is unnecessary. Simply submit and all of this ends. Accept your place in the hierarchy. Learn obedience. Be happy." Looked at the trophy wall. All those broken spirits. All those crushed dreams. All those students who had been told that submission would bring happiness. "Can I ask you something?" said. The commander's wings twitched with surprise. Students did not ask questions during conditioning. They answered them. Ask. Those trophies. Do you know what happened to the students they came from? Did not answer immediately. The truth was uncomfortable. Many of them had become exactly what the Academy promised, productive, obedient members of galactic society, but many others had not. Some had become empty shells going through motions without joy. Some had taken their own lives. Some had simply disappeared. They served the collective, the commander finally said. That is all that matters. Stood up slowly. She walked to the trophy wall and looked at each item. Petals, stone chips, gas containers, feathers, scales, 100 different pieces of 100 different people. On my world, she said quietly, we have a word for this. We call it abuse. We call it wrong. We call it something that should never happen to anyone, no matter what you think they need to learn. She turned back to face the commander. You think you are helping us. You think breaking us makes us better. But all you are doing is teaching us that strength means cruelty and power means pain. Her voice was steady despite her exhaustion. I will not learn that lesson. I will not become that kind of person. And I will not break, no matter what you do to me. Commander reached into her desk and pulled out a thin blade. It gleamed in the dim light like a sliver of ice. It was the ceremonial instrument used in the Academy's most serious disciplinary rituals. She placed it on the desk between them. Cut yourself, the commander said. Show me your submission through your pain. Let your blood prove that you accept your place beneath us. Looked at the blade. Then she looked at the commander. Then she smiled. It was not a desperate smile. It was not a broken smile. It was a smile of genuine amusement, warm and real and absolutely unexpected. And in that moment, Commander felt something she had not felt in 300 years. Fear. The smile changed everything. Commander had seen many reactions to the ceremonial blade. She had seen tears and terror and trembling. She had seen defiance crumble into despair. She had seen strong students become weak and proud students become humble. But she had never seen anyone smile. Why are you smiling? The commander demanded. Her voice cracked with something close to anger, something close to confusion, something close to fear. Picked up the blade and examined it. The edge was sharp enough to cut through stone. The handle was carved from the bones of some ancient creature. It was designed to intimidate, to frighten, to remind students of their fragile mortality. 2. It looked like a kitchen knife. Commander, she said slowly, I grew up on Earth. Do you know what that means? I know your world is classified as a death world, replied. I know your species should not have survived long enough to develop technology. I know you are dangerous. Set the blade back on the desk. When I was 6 years old, she said, I stepped on a bee. It stung my foot. The pain was like fire. I cried for an hour. My mother put ice on it and told me that pain was just the body's way of saying be careful next time. She held up her hands. Small scars marked her fingers and palms, white lines against brown skin. When I was 8, I fell off my bicycle and scraped my knees so badly that I could see bone. When I was 10, I broke my arm climbing a tree. When I was 12, I got food poisoning so severe that I lost 10 pounds in 3 days. When I was 15, I survived a bacterial infection that killed millions of humans before we invented antibiotics. She let her hands fall. I have been bitten by insects whose venom can kill a grown man. I have been stung by creatures that do not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. I have been burned by the sun and frozen by the cold and beaten down by storms that could destroy cities. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. And I am still here. I am still alive. I am still standing in front of you, refusing to break. Commander Swings had gone completely still. Her compound eyes were fixed on the human girl with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Pain does not frighten me, continued. On my world, pain is just something that happens between breakfast and dinner. We do not worship it. We do not flee from it. We simply acknowledge it and move on. She gestured at the blade. You want me to cut myself to prove my submission, but cutting myself would not prove anything. It would just be another scar, another story, another moment of being human on a world that never wanted us to survive. The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. Commander reached for a control panel on her desk. She pressed a button. Two guards entered the office, their combat limbs extended, their wings folded tight for battle. They were soldiers, trained to fight and kill, armored in chitin harder than steel. Make her bleed, the commander ordered. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wild. Show her that pain on this world is different from pain on hers. The guards hesitated. They had read the briefing files on humans. They had seen the footage of handling the student. They knew what Deathworld species were capable of, even the soft and small ones. But an order was an order. The first guard struck its face with a limb designed to punch through armor plating. It moved fast, faster than any Earth creature could match. Moved faster. She did not think about what she was doing. Her body simply reacted, drawing on millions of years of evolution, countless generations of ancestors who had survived by being just a little quicker than the things trying to kill them. She caught the guard's limb, redirected its force, and used the creature's own momentum to throw it into its companion. Both guards crashed to the floor in a tangle of crystalline wings and twitching legs. Had not attacked, she had only defended. The difference was important to her, even if no one else would understand. Commander reached for the emergency alarm, her hand trembling for the first time in centuries. His hand closed over hers, not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to stop. I did not come here to fight, you said. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. I came here to learn. I came here to prove that humans deserve a place in the galaxy. I came here to be better than everyone expects. She released the commander's hand and stepped back. But I will not be broken. I will not submit to cruelty and call it education. I will not bleed on command and call it obedience. She picked up her bag from where it had fallen during the brief struggle. I will attend my classes tomorrow. I will complete my assignments. I will graduate from this academy with the highest marks in its history. And I will do it without ever bowing to you, without ever cutting myself for your satisfaction, without ever becoming the kind of broken thing you want to create. She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Do you want to know the real reason humans survived on Earth? It was not because we were strong, though we are strong. It was not because we were fast, though we are fast. It was because we refused to accept that survival required suffering. Her eyes met the commander's. We looked at our death world and decided that we deserved better. We built shelter against the cold. We created medicine against disease. We made weapons against predators and tools against hunger and communities against loneliness. We did not submit to our world. We changed it. She opened the door. And we can change this world too. Not through violence, not through rebellion, just by being ourselves, by refusing to break, by showing everyone that there is another way. The door closed behind her. Commander sat alone in her office, surrounded by her trophies, her guards groaning on the floor, her certainty crumbling like old stone. She had spent 300 years breaking students. She had believed, truly believed, that she was helping them. That pain taught discipline. That suffering created strength. That submission was the foundation of civilization. But this human girl had shown her something different, something she had never considered, something that terrified her more than any Deathworld predator. The possibility that she had been wrong. That night, Commander did not sleep. She reviewed footage of defending the student. She read reports of the human girl's performance in classes, top marks in every subject despite weeks of systematic abuse. She studied the scars on those small hands, evidence of a lifetime of pain that had not broken but had shaped. By morning, she had made a decision. The conditioning program would end, not because had won, but because the commander no longer knew what winning meant. And somewhere in her student quarters, Cole slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, dreaming of California beaches and smooth gray stones, and a family waiting for her to come home. She would see them again, she was certain of it, because she was human, and humans did not give up. Not ever. Word spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. The human girl had faced Commander and survived. She had refused the ceremonial blade. She had defeated 2 trained guards without throwing a single punch. She had walked out of the Commander's office on her own 2 feet, unbroken and unbowed. Students who had spent years learning to be afraid began to whisper new words: hope, possibility, change. Noticed the difference on her first morning after the confrontation. When she walked to the cafeteria, other students did not run away. They watched her with something other than fear. Curiosity, maybe. Admiration, perhaps. Something that felt almost like respect. Her food card worked again. Nobody had told her it would. She simply swiped it and the machine dispensed a tray of nutrient paste, the same bland meal every student received. She found an empty table and sat down alone as usual. But she did not stay alone for long. The student she had defended weeks ago approached her table slowly. Her petals had fully recovered, glowing soft blue in the cafeteria light. Her movements were hesitant but determined. "May I sit with you?" Looked up, surprised. No one had asked to sit with her since she arrived. "Of course," she said. This name was. She was young for her species, only 30 cycles old, barely past childhood. She had been sent to the academy because her family believed she was too curious, too independent, too willing to ask questions that made others uncomfortable. "I wanted to thank you," said. Her voice was soft like wind through leaves, "for helping me. No one else would." "You do not need to thank me," replied. "It was the right thing to do." Petals flickered, with an emotion that's translator could not quite capture. "That is exactly why I needed to thank you. Because you did the right thing when doing nothing would have been easier, when doing nothing would have been safer." They ate together in comfortable silence. When they finished, followed to their shared history class. She sat in the seat next to the human girl instead of across the room. It was a small thing, but small things could grow. Over the next few weeks, others joined them. A named who had been punished so many times that his stone body was more scar than surface. His crime had been refusing to recite the Academy's loyalty oath because he believed the words were lies. A pair of twins named and who had been separated and punished whenever they tried to communicate through their natural telepathic bond. A named, the same one who had tormented, who approached one day and said simply, "I was wrong. I am sorry." Did not turn any of them away. She did not judge their pasts or demand apologies or explanations. She simply made room at her table, shared her notes, listened to their stories. She learned that most of them had been sent to the academy for the same reason she had been told she would never fit in on Earth. They were different. They asked questions. They did not accept the way things were simply because the way things were had always been that way. They were not broken. They were just waiting for permission to be themselves again. And showed them that they had never needed permission in the first place. Commander watched through surveillance systems as her carefully constructed hierarchy began to collapse. Students who had been perfectly conditioned stopped flinching when teachers raised their voices. They started looking each other in the eyes. They started talking about their homes, their families, their hopes for the future. They started acting like people instead of products. The commander brought her concerns to the Academy's governing board. She stood in the ancient chamber where elders had dispensed judgment for thousands of years and presented her case with all the passion of 3 centuries of service. "The human is destroying everything we have built," she said. "The conditioning program is failing. Students are questioning authority. The entire foundation of our educational philosophy is crumbling. The board listened. They were old, older than old enough to remember when the academy had been founded. They had seen many changes over the centuries. They were not easily alarmed. What has the human actually done wrong? The eldest board member asked. Listed her evidence: defiance of authority, refusal to submit, inspiring disobedience, assault on academy guards. The board reviewed the footage. They watched defend herself without attacking. They watched her walk away without threatening. They watched her sit in the cafeteria with a group of students who were learning to smile again. This is not against academy regulations, the eldest board member observed. We require students to submit. We do not require them to be helpless. We do not require them to be friendless. We do not require them to be unhappy. His wings trembled with frustration. Then what do we require? The question hung in the air like smoke. The board members looked at each other with something that might have been doubt, something that might have been shame. Perhaps the eldest member said slowly, "We have forgotten." The meeting ended without resolution. Returned to her office and sat among her trophies and wondered if she had wasted her life. Meanwhile, the group continued to grow. They met in the evenings, not to plot rebellion but simply to talk. They shared stories of theirs. They helped each other with assignments. They laughed and complained and supported each other the way friends did everywhere in the galaxy. Told them about flower festivals, where thousands of her people gathered to share pollen and create new life. Described meditation, the practice of sitting so still that moss grew on your shoulders. And demonstrated a form of communication so intimate that it felt like sharing a soul. And told them about Earth. She told them about oceans so vast that you could sail for weeks without seeing land. She told them about mountains so tall that the air at their peaks could kill you. She told them about forests full of predators and deserts full of poison and cities full of millions of people living side by side. She told them about human history, the wars and plagues and disasters that should have ended their species 100 times over. And she told them about human resilience, the stubborn refusal to accept defeat, the belief that tomorrow could always be better than today. They listened with wonder and fear, and something that felt almost like envy. "You survived all of that," said quietly. "How?" Thought about the question for a long time before answering. "We survived because we had each other," she finally said. "Because when one person fell, others helped them up. Because when one community faced disaster, neighbors came to help. Because we understood that survival alone is not survival at all." She looked around at the strange, beautiful creatures who had become her friends. "That is what I want for all of you. Not obedience, not submission, just the knowledge that you are not alone, that you have value, that your differences make you stronger, not weaker." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the who had not smiled in years made a sound like stones grinding together. It was laughter. And one by one, the others joined in, their voices rising together in a chorus of joy that echoed through the halls of an academy that had forgotten what joy sounded like. Commander heard the laughter from her office. She did not know what it meant. But she knew, deep in her ancient heart, that nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Integration Academy closed its behavioral conditioning wing 6 months after Cole's arrival. The announcement came without warning. One morning, students woke to find that the punishment cells were empty, the torture devices were gone, and Commander had been reassigned to a distant outpost where she could no longer hurt anyone. The governing board released a statement. They said that the Academy's methods had been reviewed and found lacking. They said that education should build students up, not break them down. They said that the old ways were finished and new ways would take their place. They did not mention by name. They did not need to. Everyone knew. The transition was not easy. Many teachers had spent their entire careers learning to be cruel. They did not know how to be kind. They did not know how to teach through encouragement instead of fear. They did not know how to see students as people instead of problems to be solved. But they learned, slowly, awkwardly, with many mistakes along the way. They learned because the students demanded it, and the students demanded it because had shown them that demanding was possible. Became the first to study xenobiology at the academy. Her research focused on Earth creatures, the strange and wonderful animals that had evolved on the galaxy's most dangerous planet. She wrote papers about persistence hunting, the human technique of chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. She gave lectures about human-pack bonding, the tendency to form emotional attachments with almost anything, including machines and stuffed animals and pets that could kill them. Her work changed how the galaxy saw humans. They were not just Deathworld monsters anymore. They were something far more interesting, creatures who had turned their world's deadliness into strength through sheer stubborn refusal to die. Returned to his after graduation. He had been sent to the academy because his people thought he was defective, too questioning, too curious. He returned with new ideas about education, about growth, about the difference between discipline and abuse. Within a decade, he had reformed his entire species' school system and became diplomats. Their restored telepathic bond made them uniquely skilled at understanding both sides of any conflict. They specialized in first contact situations, helping newly discovered species join the galactic community without being crushed by it. They always made sure that integration meant partnership, not submission. Even the who had once tormented found a better path. They became an advocate for reformed bullies, creating programs that helped young predator species understand that strength did not require cruelty. Their organization saved thousands of lives across dozens of worlds. And graduated at the top of her class, just as she had promised. Her grades were the highest in the Academy's history. Her thesis on cross-species cooperation was required reading for every student who came after her. Her photograph hung in the entrance hall, right beneath the banner that now bore Earth's flag. But she did not leave immediately. She stayed on as a teaching assistant, then as a professor, then as something the Academy had never had before, a student advocate. Her job was to make sure that no one ever suffered what she had suffered. Her job was to be the person she had needed when she arrived. She was good at it. Years passed. The Academy changed. The galaxy changed. Humans spread across the stars, bringing their stubborn hope and impossible resilience to every world they touched. They were never the strongest species or the most advanced, but they were the ones who refused to give up, who saw problems as challenges instead of obstacles, who believed that tomorrow could always be better than today. And whenever someone asked why humans were like that, the answer always came back to the same story. A girl from a death world who was told to bleed and smiled instead. Commander lived long enough to see her academy transformed. She lived long enough to read research and reforms and the accounts of diplomats who mentioned Cole's name with reverence. She lived long enough to understand what she had witnessed all those years ago. She had not seen a student who was too stubborn to submit. She had seen a glimpse of what made Death World species survive their impossible homes. It was not strength, though humans were strong. It was not speed, though humans were fast. It was not endurance, though humans could run for days without stopping. It was something simpler, something deeper, something that the commander had spent her entire life trying to destroy because she had never understood it. It was hope. The belief that pain did not have to define them, the certainty that suffering was temporary, the conviction that no matter how dark the night became, dawn would always follow. On her last day, surrounded by the silence of her distant outpost, Commander finally understood why Cole had smiled when ordered to bleed. It was not defiance, though defiance was part of it. It was not arrogance, though confidence played a role. It was something far more human than that. It was the knowledge that the blade could cut her flesh but could never touch her soul. It was the understanding that pain was just sensation, and fear was just chemistry, and submission was just a choice she did not have to make. It was freedom. Not freedom from consequence or freedom from suffering, but freedom of spirit. The freedom to decide who she was and what she stood for, regardless of what anyone else demanded. That was the human secret. That was what made Deathworld children so dangerous and so beautiful. They had learned, through millions of years of evolution, that survival was not about avoiding pain, but about choosing what to do with it. And Cole had chosen to smile. Somewhere on Earth, in a small house near a California beach, an old woman sat on her porch and watched the sunset. Her hair was gray now, her skin lined with age, her hands spotted with decades of living. But her eyes were the same eyes that had stared down Commander all those years ago, bright and warm and full of stubborn hope. Her played in the yard, their laughter mixing with the sound of waves. Human children, born into a galaxy that had once feared their species and now respected them. Human children who would never know what it meant to be told they were monsters, who would never understand why their grandmother's old friends called her a hero. The old woman smiled as she watched them play. It was the same smile she had worn in that cold office so many years ago, when an alien commander had demanded her blood and received only defiance. The same smile that had changed an academy, then a planet, then a galaxy. A smile that said, "You cannot break me, you never could, because I am human and we do not break. We bend, we adapt, we survive. And we always, always smile." The sun set over the California ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The old woman closed her eyes and remembered a different sky, a different world, a different time. She remembered being young and afraid and alone. She remembered choosing hope anyway. And she knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice. The Deathworld girl had smiled. And everything had changed.